do have a Grammy for the Shaka Khan album, Funk This, which I did with Jam and Lewis last year. So we just won it, which was great. We got a Grammy for Best R&B Album of the Year, and we got a Grammy for Best Dual Vocal Performance, because we did one of the songs we did. It was a duet between Shaka and Mary J. Blige. I really had fun doing a song with Gwen Stefani on her first solo record. That was fun. We did a song called Harajuku Girl. Spike Stent mixed it, actually. Tracked it, and that came out really nice. That was a lot of fun. Well, it's relationships. You start working with a set of producers and artists, and the chemistry's good. Everybody works well together. You make a good record. Everybody likes what you do. You like what they do. And then before you know it, it's sort of you just do everything that they have. Obviously, it's about the sound, and we want to get the best thing possible. But you want to make sure that you get the performance too. Otherwise, there just is no record. So you have to get everything all at once. Well, one of the first guys I started to learn stuff off of, well, of course, Al Schmidt, because I used to assist for Al and Bill, but I used to like sort of fill in, and so I used to always ask Al what to do. You know what I mean? I remember Al was always real nice about it, and he'd sort of fill me in on how to do my first string session, or how to, you know, what mics to use for this or that, and he was always very gracious. And then I used to assist a lot for a producer engineer, Rich Costi, who does great stuff. At the time, he was doing a lot of stuff for Rick Rubin, and I was always assisting on his projects, and so I was sort of watching how he did his how he did his everything that he was working on, and it was I learned a lot from Rich, because he had really great sonics and everything. And of course, the producers that I admired when I was a kid were people like Mutt Lange, who did like immaculate sounding, you know, records, you know, with absolute perfection. But yeah, there's a many to mention. So yeah, you know, you start assisting, and that's sort of your gig. But every once in a while, you get somebody who will hire you for something outside. And then there's a period, for me at least, where I'd be assisting, and then I'd get a project that'd take me away for a month, and then that would end, and you know, maybe I didn't quite have my network established well enough, so that I'd go back and assist a little bit more, and then I'd go, and then until you finally are you're only engineering. So it probably took me a couple years, you know, 3 or 4 years of, you know, in Los Angeles before I was sort of 100%. You know, probably about 3 years, I'd say. Most of what I do is I mix and engineer, but I do a little production as well. Yeah. And so let's take, for instance, this artist I just sort of, I can't really talk about her at this point, but this artist I just sort of met that has a lot of potential. The first thing you do is you just get to know them, and the next thing I do is I call some writers that I'm really comfortable with, and we go and hang out, and we have meetings, and we talk, and then hopefully the next step is you know, for me is I just like to get people with writers and get the creative process flowing, and I like to try a lot of things, because you never know what's going to work, and it might be what you least expect. So as that process continues, you're going to see some things, and at that point they're sort of rough sketches, and you can get a direction and a concept. And then yes, if it would be a band, I would be all about, you know, rehearsing and getting the arrangements right first, and getting everything right before going in. But it's different if you're talking about a rock band. That's sort of the approach you'd use. If you're talking about R&B, people write in the studio. So you're not really doing that. You're not rehearsing in advance. You go get the room, you come up with the idea, you do it on the spot. So there's different approaches, you know. Sometimes it's not all about just jumping in right away. Sometimes it's just about hanging out for a while until you can actually get to know each other, especially with production. I mean, in writing, you can't have a co-writing session with somebody necessarily if you just don't get each other yet. So, you know, I was out with a couple of producers the other day, and that's exactly what we did. We hung out for a while, and then when it flows, it flows. You know, we did an Usher. I worked on the Usher Confessions album. Did about 6 songs, tracked about 6 songs with Usher, and that was sort of you know, the process is of coming up and creating a lot of that material. A lot of it is just sort of you have to get the vibe right, and then when it flows, it all flows and it all comes out. But it's not. There's no. I don't think there's really one formula, and you can't just get in and say let's write a hit. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work that way. You know. At Flight Time in Santa Monica, okay, I work with Jam and Lewis quite a bit. We built a facility in Santa Monica from the ground up. It's about a 9,000 square foot facility, and we put 5 SSL AWS 900s in that facility. We were pretty much the first people to buy the console, so yeah, we put them in there, and they were working out well. With this console is we would have all of our tracking elements up here, our mics, our drums, for bass, guitar, keyboard, you name it, and then sort of be doing all of our roughs in the box, and you've got that dual layer so you can just flip easily to the other side, do your rough mixes, go right back. You've got all your mics and all your EQs right there, so so it works both ways, you know. And then if you want, you can, you know, stem it out and get a little deeper on the mix, you know. It's just the best part about it is the flexibility, the size, the fact that you can control Pro Tools with it. There's a lot of things that you can do with it that you can't do with a J. And if your workflow is such that you want to kind of have everything in front of you at the same time, and you're doing a lot of work in Pro Tools, it really works well for that. And that's what we liked about it. Because specifically at Flight Time, we were building smaller format control rooms, and you know, the idea was not to put a big huge console in. It was to put in enough, you know. A lot of these studios, a lot of people are just using 2 channels now on the console, so it's like you want to have what you need in front of you and be able to work really well. So I mean, these pieces are great. You can track drums, you can track a lot of stuff on this console, whereas in the past the SSLs were more mixing consoles than, you know, than anything. I'm very efficient. I've got a great workflow. My talents are pretty broad. I really love doing live stuff, but I can do sort of everything in between, you know. And I can do a great mix as well.